interpretation of the utilitarian executive theory, according to which the entire executive branch is under the complete control of the president. It proposes reclassifying tens of thousands of federal civil workers as political appointees in order to replace civil people loyal to the president. Proponents of the project argue it would dismantle what they view as a vast, unaccountable, and mostly liberal government bureaucracy. Critics have characterized Project 2025 as an authoritarian Christian nationalist plan to steer the U.S. towards autocracy. Legal experts have said it would undermine the rule of law, separation of powers, separation of church and state, and civil liberties. And with that, I want to ask Attorney Richard Perque, what is this undermining of the rule of law, separation of powers, separation of church and state, and civil liberties? The same question is going to go to you, Judge Hunter. Now, this is, that's what he said. Goes to every single agent. It talks about commerce, it talks about what agents justice and how to do the service. That's touching on the first page that I typed out in my outline. What Project 2025 does, what it tries, all of the powers of the federal government. So they're in the Department of Justice. They talk about, I'm sure you can show the news, but if we are independent, quite an independent counsel prosecuting by the federal government. They want to get rid of it. They want to get rid of that. It will be whole in the Perque and the presidency, the president, they can do it on it. President, then be in charge of it. We all know about it. The president, the former president, is now under federal investigation. And he's already been convicted. So what they're trying to do is put him in a position where he thinks it's going to fight himself. So that's what we're talking about. I'm so sorry. When we talk about the checks and balances that we're doing, we are talking specifically about his ability to reach across that, go into the judiciary. They were going to need with this. Go into the legislative branch. Do not fool yourself. Contained within this are also implications where they said this is how we're going to handle things. Lucky enough, we had Congressman Carter on the line. He made it very clear. They can do all the recommendations they want, but that's not happening. But it won't stop. I think that we're going to hear from the rest of the analysts, the members of our legislature, where we are the testing ground of Project 2020. They are trying to do it here. And trying, doing. And it's going to be the exam for the federal government. The more we can do at this point, the more we can stop it. Everyone knows today we come out to vote. Let me feel. It's like the team off. We come out to vote in 2025 and go into the dust benediction. But you heard Trump say
You just want to be a dictator for one day. Don't believe it. Project 2025. This is my comp. This is my comp. What he will do. But which will reduce, eliminate, get rid of the rights to die for us, take you to the community, for anyone, immigrants. That's what it's about. But we can change that. We can stop it if we come out and say, "Look, that's what it's going to come down to." And I can tell you, state government, get into this. Project 2025. So maybe started in Project 2024 here in Louisiana, particularly in the criminal justice movement, because now they want you younger and longer. Let me say that again. Younger and longer. Let me say the third time. Younger and longer. Eliminated for both. Very difficult to get good time. It's difficult for post-conviction release if you believe the case was not tried, failed, correct. So yeah, we Project 2025. The Project 2024 is already started.
I can answer that. Just so you'll have a window of what we deal with that news. Anything that our governor carries while running for office or while serving as the AG, he has already changed. Ethics, travel, he's now the only person who can appoint board chairs, criminal justice system, you name it. Everything in this Project 2025 is different for how he runs government right now. House and Government met this morning regarding eliminating some agencies, eliminating civil service. They are on a mission. This is the result of us not voting last year. This is the result of us not voting last year. So if we do the same or repeat here what we did in October of 2023, it will be all over the United States. We'll have a dictatorship, again, longer than a day. Trump has said that this will be the last election for him. It will be a dictatorship. So everyone in this room has a responsibility. Not just people sitting here on this panel. Be your own block captain. Go into your own churches, any other organization that you're with. Go into those organizations and talk about everything that you learned from here. Bring it up. We don't have time for someone else to come and wait for Martin Luther King to come back. We have to do it for the king and us. Our lives, children, and grandchildren lives depend on what we do this coming election. Because we only saw a snippet in the first 8 months of Jeff Landry's position. We're in for a tough, rough, long haul for the next 3.5 years. We have way more control than we exercise. That's why we have what they call the voter integrity package, which is really voter suppression. We have to make it our goal, our intent, be intentional about everything that we're doing, not only in this presidential election, but every election to follow. Won't happen with one cycle. We have to vote and vote often in every election.
So Rep. Willard and Senator Dr. Jacob, we've heard that these ideals or these ideologies have already started to infiltrate our state. Can you talk to us about some of the policy and legislative changes that have already been made that align with Project 2025?
Hey, good evening, everybody. I'm Matthew Willard, State Representative from District 97. I also have the privilege of being the chairperson of the House Democratic Caucus. If you review, I mean, I highly doubt anybody in here actually went through all 900 pages, Project 2025. We can all stay in some time, you don't have to go. Basically, what they have done is published manuscript that they've always talked about. You know, it's like people always ask me, why does it always seem that Republicans are on the same page and you know, Democrats seem like they do their own thing. It's because they get marching orders. And the Heritage Foundation, the group that has published Project 2025, has been providing marching orders since Ronald Reagan presidency. So they've been up to it for a very long time. As far as the state of Louisiana goes, in the parallels in Project 2025, where did it start? We just saw that U.S. Speaker Mike Johnson was trying to derail budget negotiations in Washington, D.C., because he wanted to add proof of citizenship for voting purposes to the budget package. Thankfully, that didn't get added, but guess what? Louisiana did. We required proof of citizenship to vote. That starts next year or maybe in 2026, but hey, guess what? We've already done it. Election fraud. Obviously, that became a huge thing in the wake of Donald Trump losing his re-election campaign to President Joe Biden. Right? We have to make some type of excuse. Well, you know, people are voting 2, 3, 4 times. Dead people are voting. All these claims. So what did we do in Louisiana this year? Secretary of State Nancy Landry passed a huge package of bills, which my friend Rep. Boyd said, you know, it's voter integrity, but it's actually voter disenfranchisement, because that's exactly what it does. And we spoke to you guys a couple of months ago about some of those election law changes, such as providing forms to the registrar of voters before you conduct voter registration drive, and only one witness to your absentee ballot. By the way, if you help senior facilities and nursing homes with absentee, with mail-in ballots, you can only handle one person if they're not your immediate family member. Why? Because they don't want all our senior citizens in these facilities vote, because they tend to vote Democratic. So it's always calculated. There's a huge portion of Project 2025 that attacks the LGBTQ plus community. What do we do in Louisiana this year? Finally passed a bunch of bills that the Republicans have been trying to get through. Can't use the pronouns that you identify with in the classroom. Well, you can if your parents sign off on it, and if your teacher is okay with using that pronoun. So if the parents sign off and then the teacher says, hey, I don't want to refer to Mary as he, him pronouns, I'm going to use she, her pronouns, and the teacher can do that. So what's the whole point of discrimination, hatred, cruelty? There's a bill, we can't talk about gender identity in the classroom, but we know a lot of our vulnerable youth aren't comfortable having conversations at home. And so sometimes the only care and shoulder that they can lean on is their teacher. And that's why now it's a crime for that teacher to discuss gender identity in the classroom. My mom is a teacher. She taught for 34 years. She retired earlier this year. Sometimes in her activities, she would say, hey, me and my husband did this weekend, and ask the kids, you know, did y'all do anything fun this weekend? She wouldn't be able to do that anymore, because when she says husband, that brings into the conversation sexuality. She is in a heterosexual marriage to a man. And so it's baffling some of the things that they do. But guess what? It's all part of a huge playbook. And so there's language for the department overhaul that Attorney Perque was getting at. They want to bring in all those agencies, all federal agencies, under the administration of the president. Let me tell you what that looks like in Louisiana. This year we passed a bill that says the governor can appoint a chairperson to every state board and commission. There's over 100 of them. They include higher education boards. That's exactly what we did in Louisiana. That's what they want to do at the federal level. It's all going to be positions by political appointees, people who are getting favors returned to them, and it's going to be even more toxic. You think Washington, D.C. is toxic right now. It'll get even more toxic. I mean, there's just so many things that parallel Louisiana to Project 2025. And I think the big takeaway is to let you know, maybe we didn't pay attention last year when that election was going on, but we're all woken up now because there's literally a manifesto of 900 pages telling us what they want to do. And Doc, I think Dr. Bowie probably has some other things that he wants to highlight on it. So Doc,
And Dr. Bowie, I want you to speak specific to the quest to demolish the Department of Education. What implications does that have for public education across this country?
thank you, Dr. Wyatt, and good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Boyd. I represent the Senate District. I said, not only is Louisiana the poster child, but Project 2025 is a direct threat to the democracy of Americans we know. So all of the units and systems that are designed to help citizens to be productive, to become independent, to get the knowledge, values, and skills they need to do so, they want to take it away. Specifically, 40 pages of 900 public education. And here's what Project 2025 says about public education. It says federal education policy should be limited and ultimately federal Department of Education should be eliminated. So they want to eliminate public education. Not only that, the way they are planning to do it is three ways in the 40 pages. One, they want to totally reorganize and ultimately eliminate not just the department, but change every policy within the Department of Education. Secondly, they want to pump up the volume, if you will, on the charter code, commonly referred to as charter schools. And then there's this new method or institution, educational savings account, ESH. I'm hearing about those. We just passed the bill in the legislature to provide ESH. Basically, what that says is to take public money, give it to parents so they can send their kids to a private school. However, the amount of money we're talking about doing is really not enough. So the poor families will not be able to send their kids to a private school. And you know what the private schools are going to do? They're going to raise tuition and they're going to selectively choose who they let in. Now, here's what, in a nutshell, because basically, if we're trying to understand what the impact of 2025 will be on the nation, everything is local. All politics is local. So what I want to focus on is how 2025 not will impact us in Louisiana in general, but New Orleans in particular, but how it already has. And we are the poster child for 2025. That is, we will be the model that they'll go around and say, well, look at what Louisiana has done and is doing, how well it's going. I want to talk to you about some of those three of the things that they've done in 2025 that we've already done here in Louisiana. Before I do that, here are just some general things that will happen to the policy reforms of 2025. I want to dismantle the U.S. Department of Education, eliminate the Head Start program for young children in poverty, discontinue the Title I program that provides federal funding to schools serving low-income children, rescind federal civil rights protections for LGBTQ plus students, undercut federal capacities and enforce civil rights laws, reduce federal funding for students with disabilities, and remove guardrails designed to ensure those children are adequately served by schools, promote universal private school choice, privatize the federal student loan portfolio, and that's just the beginning. Now, when it comes to Louisiana in general and all these guys, just this legislative session, because my colleagues on the panel and myself have been fighting for the last 10 years to deal with what the state of Louisiana has done. All these parents have been made the only all-charter district in the world, not just the nation. Out of 64 municipalities and 69 school districts, our school district is the only all-charter district. Now, long story short, we demonstrated, I took the podium when the bill to eliminate, get rid of the experiment, because that's what the charter approach is, an experiment. I know. Basically, what we did in terms of presenting evidence, we demonstrated that it was flawed, it has failed, it is discriminatory, and it's illegal. And I'll briefly share with you the data around each one of those, just so you can understand how we really have been bamboozled and continue to be. Even today when we talk about what's happening with our school children. It's flawed simply because the Department of Education and Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, when they implemented the charter experiment, never did it as an experiment. What I learned was when I looked at Bulletin 26, which was when you pass a law, then you have to do an administrative rule to implement the law, right? So charter law was RS 1739-72, basically saying any school district who want to use this charter approach, you should do it as an experiment. Here's what you must do. Now, there's nothing wrong with experiments because that's how we work. That's how we build new knowledge, right? But you have to do it a certain way. You have to do it within what's called the scientific method. Specifically where you say, here's the condition, I hope to change the condition, and for us it was to what? Improve student performance. And so what we would do is, what they were supposed to say was, okay, we will intervene by doing this. That is, we may teach math this way. The pedagogy for teaching math may be A, B, and C. Well, then after you do A, B, and C a while, then you go in and do what? You measure A, B, and C, right? To see what impact it had on the student's performance. That never happened. 19 years and over $10 billion taxpayers' money. They never did what the law required. Basically, what was happening is you had these charter operators, which were private contracts, coming in, getting that school and the money and our children and the building, and doing basically whatever they wanted to do. And there was some horror stories in the early years. What we learned in terms of it being illegal was that what the Department of Education did, what the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education did, in the administrative rule, they took out the word experiment in the law. And then they checked into the legislative intent in Perque. And then we know it failed because in 2005, when they took our schools, 63% of our kids were not performing at grade level. When we measured the kids' performance at grade level in 2019, 73% were not performing. When we did it during COVID, 79% were not performing. And presently, as we speak, 73% of our kids are not performing at grade level. So the kids are doing worse than when they did that. Now, you heard one of the school board members mention that we have our first direct run school in 19 years. That is our opportunity to change the direction of what's happening with our children. Because every other municipality runs their own schools. We are outsourcing the education of our children to private contractors with no accountability. Our elected school board has no governance authority over our children, over our schools. Every charter group has its own board. So the only thing our school board members can do is make requests. That is, if we learn, for instance, there's a curriculum that works, and our school board wants to say to those private contractors, we want you to use this, they can't do that. They have to request that because of what they call autonomy. That is, they can operate without anybody telling them anything. Autonomy is over contract, hours, filing, contract, everything. And so, 50% plus of our kids are DNF students. And the truth of the matter, C is not being passed either because we grade our kids on 150 points as opposed to 100. So if you really look at it, C's are really not passing grades either. So now what does that mean? We said it was discriminatory, right? Of all of the charters in the state, because if this thing was so great, we should be doing it all over the state, right? But we don't. All these parishes is the only place we're doing this. Now remember how the charter approach was decided to be used. In 2003, the citizens of Louisiana passed Act 9, which said to Bessie that the state could take failing schools from districts. And what they would do would take the school, reform it, and return it back to the district. Right? Well, at that time, we had only 4 schools considered failing. 4. Because the failing grade was a 60 or below. All these parishes had only 4 schools in 2003. In August of 2005, Katrina hit. We all left the city, right? In November of 2005, a special session was called. They passed something called Act 35. In Act 35, they changed the definition of failing from a 60 to 87, took 103 of only parish schools. They did. And then turned them into all charters. That's how we got this all charter districts. So now, when you look at how many of the 69 districts have charter schools, well, only 34% of all schools in Louisiana are charter schools. That's up 700,000 children. 50% of that 34% is all these parish because they made us all charter. 20% is East Baton Rouge parish, and 7% is Jefferson parish. They make up 80% plus of the charter. Now, when I had the legislative audience to look at the similarities in terms of demographics, guess what? Those three districts, majority African American and some of the poorest people. That's where the charters are in this state. And keep in mind, the issue is not, if you can call it what you want. If students are performing, let's do it. But this is an approach that is not about academic performance of kids. Yes, we have some, quote, good performing charters, but guess what? If you name them, I guarantee you before they were co-opted to become a charter, they were direct run, they were functioning well. So very few of these charters are functioning well. So bottom line, what 2025 is going to do, what they want to do, in order to dismantle public education, they first want to take away the purpose of public education. So you're privatizing public education. You're giving it to private contract. And now you're going to take public dollars and give educational savings account grants to parents so they can take their kids and send them to private schools. Bottom line is you will dismantle public education as we know it. And we are the poster child for that. We're the poster child.
Somebody ought to be clapping for that. That was a whole bunch of information. And I absolutely am going to circle back to you, Senator Dr. Joseph Boyd, but in the interest of time, and we do want to apologize because our councilman has a prior engagement that he has to get to. So we want to get his insight on Project 2025, and then we'll welcome Royce, Senator Royce Duplessis to the stage, and he'll talk to us about some state implications of Project 2025. So Councilman Freddie, your thoughts before you have to leave us. No time, okay.
Almost I can. One conversation. Thank y'all for having me. Good evening. I wanted to kind of get a little closer to Project 2025. It's already happening here in the city of Walton. I heard somebody say, I'm not worried about Project 2025. I'm worried about Project 2020 now. And that made a lot of sense. And here's why. The city was forced, or is being forced to spend tens of millions of dollars. I saw Sheriff Hudson as well. Okay, you're building the new prison or adding on top of jail. All right. The federal government was forced us to do that. Councilmember Albert Thomas and myself went to the federal judge in office who's over this Friday. And we begged him not to do this. He said, why would you spend what's the number of service that we were given to mandated to spend on the in addition to the jail?
150 million. And counting.
And counting. So I said, Judge, and Councilman Thomas, we can use that money to improve our playgrounds. Use that money to our infrastructure. Use that money to give that revenue to our kids. He kind of went back and said no. So he's letting us know I'm going to give this money to build an addition to a jail. And if you build it, what's going to happen? You're going to find reasons to fill it up. You're finding reasons to fill that jail up. Now, I actually had a couple of justice committee meeting about a year ago to ask everybody that came before us. I asked the sheriff's office, the police office, police chief, I asked everybody. I asked the police chief, Police, how many people do you arrest? How many, which percentage of African Americans? Over 95%. I asked the sheriff, you're a prisoner in jail, which percentage of African Americans? Over 90%. Now, it's not anything that we're doing. It's just how this system is built. The DA's office, the percentage of people you're prosecuting, how many of them are African Americans? Over 95%. The most startling number is in JJIC, that's Juvenile Justice Intervention Center, over in Philly. That number is about 98% African American. We're talking 18 and under. That number for Black boys is about 95%. So we know we have a problem with Black men, men and young boys going to jail. Instead of giving us something like $150 million in county, we're taking that money, we're using it to build a bigger prison. What does that do? That dilutes the voting population of the city. That dilutes the Black men presence in the city. And I'm a product of a Black man prison. I have my son right here. He's the product of a Black man. Take that Black man out of the community, you're going to have chaos. That's not politically speaking. That's take that strong Black male out of that community, you're going to have chaos. And that's what's being done, not in 2025, not months from now. That's being done in our city right now. That's on the city of Dr. Wyatt. There's a whole lot more that we can speak on in Project 2025, but that's just but I want to get everybody to realize things are already happening in our community that we should be very alarmed about, that we should be very, very troubled about. One last thing, talk about the government and how they're trying to publicly humiliate and undress the city every chance they get. Oh, now without a committee. They brought him to Baton Rouge just to humiliate him. Had no facts, had no reason to do it. Another Black man in power from the city on stage to undress him and humiliate him. That's all to be able to do a great job in defending himself. That's all to Duplessis, Representative Duplessis, a great job in defending the DA. We talk about sewage and water board. I know there's a lot of issues with the water board that is about to be decided. But you start shifting away at the power of this city. It is small things. It is small things that they see as big ones to the city is hopefully great. The government now controls sewage and water board. That's the first down on the phone. They're trying to take over the French court. You know that they got the gun laws. Carry concealed weapons. I want you to think about carrying concealed weapons. I'm not a gun person, never was one, but you add alcohol, guys, drugs, which the French court has a lot of young testosterone in guns, in close proximity, are going to have trouble. So they're giving us straw ourselves all before 2025. We're just going to look out for that. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind.
So Senator Royce Duplessis is going to give us some perspective from the state level in terms of implications of Project 2025.
Thank you, Dr. Wyatt. Good evening. You all tonight. Thank you for organizing tonight. Y'all for inviting me to be a part of it. I do apologize. I was a little sorry at getting here, but I just want to build on some of the comments that were made. And I want to thank my colleagues for doing an outstanding job of covering what has already begun here in the state of Louisiana. I'm just briefly filling a few additional gaps. My general perspective on Project 2025 is one that I think we all share and agree with. To me, it just symbolizes any progress that's been made by people of color, by people of lesser means, by people who are generally, not part of the upper class of society. Any progress that's been made by that group of individuals. Project 2025 is an attempt to keep those people in the underclass and to reverse any progress that has been made. And we see it in every aspect, whether it's education, whether it's criminal justice, whether it's environmental regulations. you name it. But to me, that's what it symbolizes. But at the very core, it's an attempt to undermine democracy. And it's an attempt to preserve power for those who are in power. So building off of, I'll kind of work backwards off of where Councilman King, he talked about the expansion of jails and the growth of jails. Well, I'll tell you right now, they're doing to increase those numbers. 2017, we did historic criminal justice reform in the state of Louisiana. We locked up the most people in the world, not the nation, in the world. And we were no safer as a result. So we made some progress in 2017 in a 2-week legislative session, a crime session. All of those efforts got undone. What are some of the main pieces that were passed? Well, you lower the age you get to when young people are considered to be adults. So if you get arrested for suspicion of stealing a Snicker bar, you're an adult. So now Sheriff Hudson has to house more young people at the age of 17 instead of at the age of 18. There's one way. That's a huge step in the wrong direction. We essentially got rid of parole in the state of Louisiana. So now people are going to be serving longer sentences. Now people are going to have less of an incentive to better themselves. So now you're going to have more violent prisons, more bad things happening in prison. It's going to cost more federal lawsuits. Everything is going to happen as a result of that. And you're going to have fewer Black men in the homes, right? So that's going to have a direct impact on our communities. Certainly, the issue around our DA. The DA is fully equipped to defend himself in his policy decisions. But what should never be brought into question, in the way it was politicized weeks ago at the state capitol, was a question of whether or not the city of New Orleans was competent to elect its own representatives. Let me be very clear about what's going on right now. They didn't say it open. I'm telling you what's coming. There will be legislation to make it such that the governor can essentially remove what they consider to be a rogue deal. And that's what's going on. It's going to basically look like what they did in Florida, what they had in Florida. Incredibly problematic, right? What I witnessed and experienced in that community of one of the worst things I've ever seen in my 6 years of being in the legislature. To me, was very similar to a time that I've only read about in the 50s and in the 60s, when you had a damsel in distress to say, that man whistled at me, or that man looked at me the wrong way, and you had a lynch mob come and find him. That's what they did when they brought that DA before that committee. I didn't even serve on that committee, but it was so bad because you didn't have a single person from New Orleans or a single Democrat on the committee that I had to ask the Senate president to let me sit in on the committee just so you could have one other voice outside of the voices from everywhere else outside of New Orleans questioning our duly elected DA. Y'all understand how problematic that is? This is serious what's going on right now. It was horrible. And this was all driven by somebody who had a political grudge because their person or persons was no longer in power. They had the power to call people who don't, she didn't even get to vote for. So I said, did you go to your city council members with this problem? Did you try to talk to your DA? That they could put together a committee meeting like that and drag one of our public officials before them in that way. It's something we should all be concerned about. All right. And we really need to come together as a community and stand up and say we will not tolerate. It's not about the DA, but it's about our democracy and defending the Orleans. Okay. Huge issue that I think is part of a larger effort by Project 2025 for conservative states to attack primary majority Black cities that are run by majority Democrats. All right. That's a major thing, but it's also nothing new. Another major piece we should also be very concerned about, we saw some legislation move into this last year as it relates to civil service. There's an effort that's part of the larger Project 2025 to essentially dismantle civil service. Civil service is crucial because once you remove that, that basically gives management the ability to hire and fire government workers based upon political preference. And you get to bring politics into government, and that's problematic because we know administrations change, political agendas change, but people shouldn't be pressured to take a political position based upon who the elected person is at that time. So there was a constitutional amendment that made its way over to the House. There was a lot of pressure being put on, the lower board. Thankfully, it was able to get killed in the House, but I'm pretty sure they're trying to come back with that bill as well. But as it relates to workers' rights and the ability for there to be collective bargaining and protecting workers in this state, we're already a work to right state. So, if you're a private employee, you can basically be fired for no cause at all, just because they want to fire you and you don't have any recourse. So we're already in a bad place with respect to workers' rights. But if they get rid of civil service, that will be incredibly damaging for the working class and people who have government jobs. So those are some other pieces that I just wanted to mention that we need to be thinking about and aware of at the state level. But I think my colleagues did an outstanding job while they covered all the elements. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Just recently, there was a young Black woman who suffered from the remnants of having a DNC procedure done. There was still some things left inside of her. And the doctors who she saw refused to care for her because they were afraid to do the procedure and weren't counterproductive to the abortion laws in that state. So Attorney Perque, can you give us some insight into the abortion and family component of Project 2025? Although Trump has said he will not sign a ban on abortion, or we to believe anything that comes from his mouth. So can you give us some insight into abortion and family as it relates to Project 2025?
Make no mistake, it's going to come if it gets to steps, 100%. But to give you an idea of where Project 2025 is, which is pushing it throughout the United States, I can tell you, whenever I sat and read all of Project 2025. I did. And it was because prior, I was asked to look at it, to make a determination, to be able to speak on how effective and LGBT plus other underserved. When I did that, in all of those pages, I mentioned 12 times. But when I did a secondary look, because I wanted to see what it was for gender. And in gender, it was mentioned 111 times. Every 8 pages, the authors of Project 2025 are looking at women, and they're looking at the definitions of women. And in every other page, abortion seems to come up. Let me give you an example. When we look at the office, executive office of the president, something that the current president, President Biden, put in place was the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And in that, they talk about women's rights, and the importance of gender equity and inclusion in the federal government, which everyone should support. So one of the things that Project 2025 initially is let's get rid of all of DEI out the federal government should be removed. It should be gone. Not only that, but anything that is included within the DEI program should likewise be removed. What does that include? That includes single mom. That includes making sure that we have maternity. That includes abortion. Specifically, abortion as defined as health care. They want to remove any mention of abortion as a health care or necessary for women to be removed from any agency. Down to the Department of Commerce, which is not a policy agency. You know that. But what we have is we have a presidential hopeful coming into office. His big thing is about Project 2025. I'm going to be pro-life. His problem with pro-life is that it should not be permitted. And I heard these horrific stories. And we heard Vice President Harris speak about these kids that are dying in parking lots day and night. And I can tell you, one of one of my dearest friends is a neurointensivist. So she is the physician who oversees the intensive care. And they've had women die. Women are dying. Because whenever an abortion is needed, what you end up having is a boardroom of men sitting around and waiting and saying, how close is she to dying? Is she this close? No, it looks like it. If we don't do something, she will. But maybe we're a day out. Well, she has to come back tomorrow. And they send her home. In my own experience, I have a family member. She found out that the fetus that she was carrying didn't really have a functioning heart. Nothing they can do. But the heartbeat bill that we have, effectively, unfortunately, said it was beating because mom's blood was keeping it going. So you know what she did? In her 8th month of pregnancy, she picked up the phone and then she gave birth. That's what we're talking. We are talking about women that are forced to do things that they don't want. We are talking about health care as a right. And throughout Project 2025, every agency, they want to remove that provision, not just remove abortion. They want to remove any reference to it being health care, yes, or a medical procedure. And that, through my reading of this, that's what scares me more than anything else. But let me be honest. I'm a 46-year-old baby. What they've had here is nothing I have not gone through in the 1980s, 1990s. I could do it standing on my head. What they are talking about doing is women, right? Everyone, because it's not you, it's your daughter, it's like she's my cousin, it's my best friend. Having to tell this woman needs to hear me, I'm sorry, there's nothing. Those are the things that should be right all. But that's what's contained. And they're talking about this in federal government. So we're not talking about, and I appreciate we're talking about what happens here locally. We're talking about the friends and things that are not state. We're talking about these people. Make no mistake. If Trump gets what he wants, he gets control of the Senate now, they're passing that. They're passing that. He's going to sign. And women will die. Women will die. And children will die. That's what we're talking about, and that's what's at risk.
Thank you. So this question is for you, Judge Arthur Hunter. Part of Project 2025 focuses on gutting and enforcement of civil rights laws. Project 2025 proposes that the Department of Justice should enforce civil rights laws only in court, eliminating important administrative tools to address discrimination, such as resolution agreements and consent decrees. It would also eliminate the use of disparate impact in civil rights enforcement, making a lot of discrimination inevitably unattainable in terms of justice. How dangerous is it to gut the enforcement of civil rights laws as per Project 2025?
I want you to go back to 1896. 1896. What happened here? Happened at criminal court. Duplessis versus Ferguson. Which separate what Eastman was stated law. So you talk about 2025, they want to take us back to 1896. But they also want to take us back to what happened in 1954. Right? So they want to go back to 1954. But also, what happened in 1964? Civil Rights Act. LGBTQ. Civil rights for us. What also happened in 1965? The voting rights. They want us to go back. They want to take us back. So we should be concerned with 2025. No doubt about that. So the other things, well, we should be concerned about because they want to take us back. And more specifically, what Trump wants to do is control the Justice Department so they don't investigate him or his friends and family. That's what it comes down to. He wants to control the FBI. So they only investigate people who he wants. And that's nothing new. Nixon did the same thing. Did the same thing. So there's nothing new under the sun. But it's gonna be up to us to make sure that it doesn't happen. But, and so it's about being it's about being a dictator. That's what it's all about. Doing what I want to do, who I want to do it to, and who I want to do it for. It's that simple. So when I see some, not to say something controversial, when I see some people of color supporting Trump, but you know, it reminds me that somebody told me, he said, no, Walter, Indians will live in the forest. So we have to, yeah. But we also have to talk to some of our African American brothers as well. They have some issues about the vice president. Who she marries, whether or not she's an African American. It's nonsense stuff. President Barack Obama, mother was what? She was white. She was white. So we got to get away from that nonsense. For those who are supporting Trump, a lot of people supporting Trump because of their tax return. They don't want to pay taxes. But it's about Trump control. Not just Trump, but his allies here in Louisiana, in the South, across the country. So that's what we have to do. But we can do it if we can stop it. On November 5th.
Thank you. This next question is going to be for Senator Royce Duplessis or Representative Willard or Representative Boyd. And there are a lot of freedom fighters in the room, and we do a lot of protesting, a lot of grassroots protesting. If Project 2025 had its way, people like Noonan Man and Kevin Griffin Clark and Leon can be killed in the streets or killed inside of the school board house protesting against not having a unified school district. What do you say about Trump's idea to provide federal immunity to police officers who kill in the line of duty?
Also part of the playbook, already happened in Louisiana. If you didn't know, Louisiana passed a bill last session. Look, we had a knockdown drag out in 2020, I want to say, to try to address the issue of qualified immunity. Representative Edmund Jordan brought a bill. They came with absolute immunity in this last session. All right. Not only did they bring absolute immunity, and it was very disingenuous by saying, "Oh, it's not absolute immunity. This is just giving them this additional language for interpretations." Yes, it was total absolute immunity, right? So that passed in Louisiana. Then they passed the unconstitutional bill of making it so that there has to be a 25-foot distance between anybody that try to record a police officer from doing his or her job. We already have laws on the books that prevent from with an investigation or interfere with law enforcement from doing their job. It was totally unnecessary. It was done to create a chilling effect, so that anybody in this room, if we saw something going on, we would think twice about pulling out our cell phone out of fear of being arrested. So that is a real issue already taking place right here in Louisiana. I hope that law is being challenged in federal court right now, and I hope it's being the 25-foot law. I don't even know how you enforce that, but yeah, all of that's going on right now with the intent to stop people from exercising their First Amendment rights of protest.
So how, Matthew Willard, how do we protect citizens who are within the 25-foot buffer zone, but the police engage the person? Because we've seen that happen. Just recently, a police officer in Jefferson Parish, a young man was more than 25 feet away from the incident. He was beating a civilian and he walked over to the person that was recording and engaged in a physical altercation with that person. So how do we protect ourselves even when we're following the 25-foot buffer zone?
That's exactly the problem. And that's exactly what the discussion on the House floor when that bill came up for a vote. Nobody can give me measurement of how far 25 feet is away from here. So not caring to take measures. The police officer won't be caring to take measures. And if they are doing their job, situation, the last thing on the mind, let me make sure this is actually 25 feet. I think you might be 22 feet. You need to back up. You can't do that safely. So for everybody in this room, please understand there are, for me, whether it's intended or unintended, horrific consequences that will occur as a result of this. If an officer doing their job and somebody tries to record them, and the officer says, you're within the 25-foot buffer zone, and the person says, no, I'm not. Do you think the officer is going to be calm about that? No. It's going to escalate just like that. We see horrific stories on the news, sometimes locally, we see them like in Jefferson Parish, of what happens when an officer who's doing something related to their job gets upset, bothered, feels offended by a person who's trying to make sure that we have accountability in the criminal justice system. So it's very dangerous. It's probably one of the bills passed this year that really gives me nightmares, right? Because if you're just trying to capture footage, think about all the cases that have led to convictions and police misconduct and officers being fired because there was footage, audio and video footage. Think of how many cases we know about because of that, how that's going to change with the law in place. So when you talk about the federal immunity for law enforcement across the country, I think they put in writing what has always been part of the playbook, and that is the full police state, where the community, just regular ordinary citizens, have to keep their head down, don't ask questions, don't pull your phone out, yes sir, yes ma'am, and keep it moving. And that is not what this country is about. We want accountability at every level of government. We certainly need it when it comes to law enforcement because it has a propensity to save and to end lives.
Representative Deisha Boyd, did you have anything to add to that?
I do. I think my colleagues have covered it really well. My concern is our children, which is 25-foot rule. I have been, I know it's going to be challenged. We know things are going to be challenged because they're unconstitutional, right? But in the meantime, we want our kids to get home alive, right? There's absolutely no way for any of us to actually know exactly what the 25-foot rule will be. What if you're on your own property? What if you're standing in your front yard, right? I don't want our kids challenging the police right now while they have absolute immunity. I just don't. The 18-year-olds being able to carry a gun without training or a permit, that's a setup. Because now walking into every situation, if they feel threatened, so that their argument will be, I thought he had a concealed weapon. We want our kids to get home. Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, lay on the ground, whatever it is, go in your house, not because we think they're doing right. I don't want one of our kids dying under this absolute immunity, and then we take care of our business by going to the voting polls, right? We have to protect our own kids here. I wanted to also add on to what Richard was talking about with the abortion law. I changed my bill this past year for children under 18, exception for rape and incest. That bill still died in committee. Testimony after testimony after testimony, supporting argument doctors, women who had been raped as children, healthcare facilities talking about kids that come in as young as 8. Because it's not the cycle that causes the pregnancy, the ovulation. So if you know a 9-year-old who has a cycle, she was ovulating probably at 8. You want an 8-year-old baby to carry a baby to term, but you don't want to feed them in the sun. You don't want to educate them in the meantime. Pro-lifers The only pro-life you can get here. The true pro-life is you're pro-life from the womb to the tomb. It don't stop once they're born, right? Now, we're talking about Project 2025, and I'm saying be afraid of it, but please pay attention to what we are experiencing right here. Then Trump had to come down with the family, similar to Richard's friend. The baby was not going to be viable. She could not find a doctor to perform the DNC for her. Even with the help of Ben Crump, she still had to leave to go out of town. What about the mothers who don't have the money to go out? What about the children who don't have the money to the state? Our doctors are leaving. My day job is I'm a real estate broker. There's a doctor on Crowd Boulevard who has closed her clinic. Not an abortion clinic, she was an OBGYN. Closed her clinic and moved to another state. So we're also, as the time goes by, we're gonna find less and less doctors even wanting to stay here, right? We have to pay attention to local politics. I'm definitely afraid of these 900 pages that Trump claims he has no idea what's in it. However, his name appears
Over 300 times.
Yes, at least 300 times in there. So I'm not saying don't be afraid, don't vote. We need to keep it from going on the federal level, but also pay attention to what we deal with right here in our own state.
Senator Duplessis.
Yeah, Dr. Wyatt, I did just want to add one other piece that I forgot to mention because your question was in the context of law enforcement and additional protections. So it didn't stop there. I don't know if anybody became aware of the law that was passed that gave civil immunity to anybody who felt like they were in fear of their life to basically drive through a crowd. Let me talk to y'all about something real quick. That bill is so dangerous. We have stand your ground laws in Louisiana already. That bill is stand your ground on steroids because it gives any person the ability to say, I'm afraid. Now, who you think that's going to apply to? I mean, think about it, right? We're talking about crowds that could come together to protest something that they don't like at City Hall or at the state capitol, walking down Claiborne Avenue, walking down Main Street.
Or
And you
right,
yeah.
or a second one.
You got somebody in town from another parish or another state leaving a Kid Rock concert or a book concert, but they drive into a parade or second line honoring Frankie Beverly and they feel afraid. And now they have been empowered to say, I don't have to sit here through this and I can basically just drive through without fear of punishment. Because that's all those bills do. Is that it sends them a message to say, you won't be punished if you felt afraid. So you can drive through a crowd and harm people when you disagree with them. Very concerning, very wrong. We need to be aware.
Absolutely. So at this time, if any of our audience has a question, you can come and stand near me. I will give the microphone. I won't give it to you. I'll hold it for you so that you can ask your question to our esteemed panel. I'm gonna hold it for you.
Just want to inform everyone here that as we talk about what is happening, our second in command of NOPD, Gunther, second in command of NOPD is one of the policemen who was involved in the RTA workers beatdown and firearm planting. You might have remembered his name, Lamont Williams. He was beaten down at Carnival a couple years ago, and our second in command, Hans Gunther, was a part of that beatdown. We watched that consent decree, watched what this chief of police is doing, along with the mayor.
Senator, especially in your district. All right.
what do you think about the bar being closed? I was there like 5 years. And it closed was so we fought. I watched all of those young kids. Why, yeah. I watched all these young kids. That's called dealing with president of and now I watch. I watch. Pretty much all that he did. And the union leader was complicit. Right? You understand? Right there. On radio. Or the department, and I don't care what color you are, they're right there. Also, and the second thing, so, looking, I was there. And when he was like, but look, I was sitting and then I didn't even know I was going 4 days later. But it was okay. Public transportation. This was for our community. I'm on the area and the board. There was not enough buses. You saw the school kids. You saw what. So I care about these issues. And I love why. I care about so we got to think about it. Teach young boys. Talk about it. We don't have. And we're doing our code judges. They don't have the resources and they go we deal with.
Thank you, sir. Hello, my name is Michelle Woodfork. I am a former interim superintendent. So when the gentleman questioned why second in command was Hans Gambier, I had to stand up because, of course, under my leadership, he was appointed second in command. I implore everybody here to go and get a copy of that incident, the entire report, the investigative report that was done by the public integrity. See what Hans Gambier's role was in that. He did not plant any evidence, not even there when the incident happened. He happened to be the supervisor of the people who were involved and was called to that scene after the people involved in an incident, in this incident were about to be arrested, reprimanded, whatever happened. So that's how he was involved in this incident. So I implore you, please make sure that you're correctly informed. I don't get, and I'm not saying anything about the gentleman's concern, but he should be concerned. But we have to get the facts. We have to get the facts straight. And as a leader of the NOPD last year, it was my duty to you and to all the other citizens to put people where they can thrive, leadership in place that works for the North Department. And you and I both know what happened in 2023. Crime went down under my leadership. And so as I walked up here, somebody said, oh yeah, the current police chief blamed it on you. That person is second in command. Please give me the blame. I'll put the second in command because I knew the tactical experience. I knew the work that he did in the field. I knew he could accomplish the things that were in my plan that I needed done, working with our state, local, federal partners. So before you rush the judge, please, I implore you, have, do a public records request and ask for that PID investigation and find out what his role with it, because I think he's getting unfair, being treated unfairly as far as that is concerned. And I in no way at all am gonna ever defend a police officer, anyone performing any type of corrupt behavior, involved in any corruption of any sort, of any kind, of any amount. I want you to know that I led with integrity, I served with integrity, and I'll continue to do that. But I want you guys to be informed before you make your judgment. And as Representative Boyd said, and also Senator Duplessis said, that the Project 2025, it's open season, are our children to watch it. I could be concerned. I have a 17-year-old who's getting ready to turn 18 on the 24th of next month. He is the most important thing. And so when I hear these laws, just because I'm in law enforcement, I'm a person who I'm a mother, I'm someone's daughter, he is someone's grandson. We're definitely aware that this is open season on young Black. And it's our personal duty, our civic duty. It doesn't have anything to do with titles or what positions that we hold for us to do something about it. The thing to do about it is please take 4 or 5 people with you to the polls on November 5th. Get out and vote. Vote your conscience. Vote the conscience of what should be the conscience of the country. And that's that we all come together as one. Thank you. Let me also add, because I'm always civically informed, and under this government, it's very hard to simply do a public records request. They're making it almost impossible to do. So that is why voting is important. There's no reason to hide information from the public if you're doing your job with fidelity and with integrity. Everybody should have access to information. So please understand that it is not as simple as it should be to simply file a federal Freedom of Information Act. So I just wanted to pin that in there.
Good afternoon. I'm opening this question to anyone on the panel, because I was stumped and I did not have a response for this. I was talking to an older lady about Project 2025, and her response, or one of her responses, was it's useless to vote, because even if we vote and we get Kamala Harris in office, the authors of Project 2025 are already there. How do we stop them? Even if we vote our first female president.
So we have to understand that the greatest victories in history came over time. It won't happen overnight. If the bus boycott was 381 days, not 60 days, not 6 months, not a year, they took for them to feel it in their pocket to make that change. So even with one election, the change will not happen overnight, but we have to be committed, be in it for the long haul, not just for ourselves, but for our children. So Kamala won't be able to repeal and change everything in 4 years. The mayor, the police, none of that will happen immediately. But we have to be committed to the change. They expect us not to stand the test. They expect us to protest a little bit and give up. They expect us to get out in March for 30 days or 60 days and then stop and then hold nobody accountable. Everyone who is elected, who gets your vote, whether they get your vote or not, if they represent you, hold them accountable. Call them. Send emails, come, participate, right? They listen. And I'm not talking about the forum emails that they get. I take more time to read 10 emails with specific stories versus 100 emails that somebody cut and paste. Don't think that your voice doesn't matter. That's 10 emails from just regular citizens who I get those 10 and I'm saying, okay, well, this must be an issue. Let me check into, right? Be intentional about what it is that we want. We can make the change. We have the blueprint for that. They did it in the 60s and the 70s. They already showed us how to get things done and to create change. All we have to do is go back to that old school way. I promise.
follow up on that. Those people will always be. The people that wrote this will always be there. We will always have people like Freddie. We will always have people like Mike Johnson. They will always be impacted. The question is, can they implement what they're trying to do? And with Kamala Harris there, they cannot, because she still has to sign these things into law. And so she is our line of defense. She's the one stating they're going, it's not happening. And a lot of what they're talking about in Project 2025 are policy changes at the agency level. And those policy changes were made by the people she. So we're talking about the Secretary of Education, the Secretary of Commerce, and the Secretary of Health and Human Services. When she has control of that, she has control of the policies that are. That's why we need people to vote. Because without that, then the people that are always there get their hands on the power. Those are the people we can't let happen. We can't let that happen in our government.
And don't forget about the U.S. Supreme Court. I get it. Many of us are confronted with this question of whether or not it's going to make a difference. The first thing I do is I honor and respect and try to hear that many in our community, not just our community, but all across the country, people are disaffected, right? Because conditions have just been so bad for so long. But we give it time.